Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Word Alive broadcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike Dobbs, and we're so glad that you have come back to see us again. And we pray that we can say something today that'll be a blessing to you. As you can see, I'm on a tropical island, and not really, but anyway, we are in our new studio, and we've got all kind of new bells and whistles, and we're real proud of it. And so we just want to make it the best that we can be. And as we begin to teach about different things in the Bible, we will try to make the background look like we're there. And so we want to do everything we can to make the Word come alive to you. And we thank you for coming back, and pray everything is better for you. And for those that have been suffering from the virus, or if you had family that has been suffering from the virus, we've been praying for you and believing that God is going to move in your behalf in your situation. And we know our God is a healer and a protector. And so we're praying for the best for you. And for those that have suffered loss, we are praying that God would help you deal with your grief, and that He would let His love and comfort flood your soul, so that you will know that He is nigh, and that He is there, and that He does care, and that He wants to restore you. We don't understand why the Father does what He does, or why He allows some things to happen. And when we can't see His hand, we have to trust His heart and know that He knows best for our lives. That's the only way that we can cope with some things that happen in our life that we cannot explain. We just have to trust His heart and know that Father knows best. And how many times do I say that a day? Well, we're going back to the Word of the Lord in Genesis, the 6th chapter. We were talking about the ark, and there's so much typology, rich typology that is in the ark that I'm sure you will enjoy as we continue. And one of those things is, I'm just going to recap for a second. One of those things, as we mentioned in our last broadcast, is that God instructed Noah to cover the ark with pitch within and without. And the first thing that we made mention to you was that lets us know that the ark was not made to be beautiful. It was not a work of art. In fact, it was a big black blob. It was huge. It was covered with bitumen. Obviously, there must have been tar pits in the area somewhere, and Noah must have known about those, and so they went and they got pitch, and they covered the ark on the outside with black tar, with black pitch. So it wasn't beautiful. It wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be functional. And you know, sometimes we might try to make the church more attractive, the gospel more attractive. Some people say, well, if you took the blood out of the gospel, then it would be more attractive to people, wouldn't be so gory. But the fact is, the blood is necessary because it redeems us. And he said, kafar it. He said, cover it, pitch it on the inside and the out. And so not only was it ugly on the outside, it was ugly on the inside. I mean, the walls were covered with black pitch. And so it was not made to be attractive. It was not a fashion statement. It was a functional box to redeem or to save Noah and his family and all the animals and anyone else that would want to come in and be in the ark. And so we've got to understand that sometimes people look at the church from the outside and they don't see that it's very attractive, and it certainly isn't to our flesh, because, you know, to live and carry the cross and to be a true Christian, there has to be some dying to self, there has to be self-discipline, there has to be yielding to God and letting Him be master and us be servant. None of that is very attractive to the flesh, but it's absolutely necessary for us to grow in relationship with God. So He didn't mean it to be something beautiful. And the word kafar, interesting enough, is the word that we also would use for covenant or cutting or redeem. So He said, by covering it with pitch, you're redeeming it inside and out. God wants to redeem us inside and out. What He does is the work inside, but it will affect our lifestyle. It will affect our appearance. It will affect how we live, what we say, how we talk, even sometimes where we go and how we dress. Because you see, to be redeemed on the outside means that something has happened on the inside and vice versa. And God does clean up the inside, but you can rest assured that because the body is a servant to the soul, that as the soul becomes closer to God, the body is going to reflect the same thing, and that is what we call holiness. And you can't have God without holiness because it's His major attribute. So to know God is to know holiness. To know holiness is to know separation from the unclean things of this world, the things that belong to the perversion of Satan's system, and embracing those things that are pure and holy and of a good report, those things that are pleasing to God, and allowing holiness to reign in our life. And so the ark is not just a boat, it's a place of separation. You see, when Noah comes into the ark, he will be separated, thankfully, from everybody else in the world. The animals that are in the ark will be separated permanently from the animals that are outside the ark. And so when you look at the ark, you may say, well, it looks like a big prison to me because he's going to be in there for over a year and he's going to have to live in those quarters and with all those animals and with his family. Kind of reminds me of what we're doing right now and the fact that it's shelter only. And I'm sure that, when everybody is in the same house and we're all there and can't go anywhere, that it can probably get on each other's nerves a little bit. And I'm sure that probably happened at Noah's house too. And so we must understand that to be saved by the ark, there had to be separation. Separation comes with holiness. Separation comes with a relationship with God. We cannot live like a harlot of the world and be the bride of Christ. And of course, Paul makes that very clear when he says, what fellowship do we have with Belial, which is the word for deceitfulness or a liar or someone that is conniving, and what fellowship do we have with the idols when we are the temple of the Holy Ghost? So we must understand that if you're going to live for God and have a relationship with God, you're going to have holiness in your life, and there is going to be some form of separation because that's exactly what happened to Noah and his family. They went in the ark, God shut the door, and now they are separated unto God, which, by the way, is another definition for devotion or consecration, is to be separated unto God for his service. And so there has to be some separation involved in our relationship with God, and he has to be number one. So there's just so much typology, and we'll get into even more of that as we continue to study. Now, what we were talking about at the very end of the broadcast was the fact that the ark was built according to the length of a cubit. And if you use the amma, which is the original cubit, then it would be the length from the forearm to the elbow from the end of the middle finger. So from the end of the middle finger to the elbow would be a cubit. Now, my cubit would be longer than your cubit because I have to order special shirts because of my long arms. So the cubit would be a variation. So how long was a cubit? Well, to be honest with you, as I began to study to try to find some solid ground to say what a cubit was, I found that whoever was king, from his forefinger to his elbow was the length of a cubit. So if you had a short king, then everything got short for a while. And if you had a tall king, then everything got longer. And that's the way it was. But if we want to take a standard, we will say that the great cubit or the Babylonian cubit was 18 inches, okay? So it may be more than 18 inches from the end of your finger to your elbow. It may be less than that. And so eventually they came to the point where they said, okay, this is going to be considered the cubit. We're going to make it 18 inches, and that's how we're going to do it. Now, if that's the case, then the ark was 50 cubits in height, 30 cubits. That would be 450 feet long, 75 feet high, and 45 feet wide. Now, if you use the great cubit, the amma, then you would be saying 600 by 100 by 75. Either one, it was a huge box, okay? It was very, very large. And I have seen, if you haven't been to Williamstown, Kentucky, that's where the Ark Experience is, and they have a full-size replica of the Ark there that is very impressive, and I would encourage you to go and see it. The same man who built it also built the Creation Museum in Cincinnati, and I'll tell you that Ken Ham is a genius, and he has done a lot of research, a brilliant mind, and a tremendous man, and I met him the last time I was at the Ark. He came to my table where I was eating, and I was able to have a conversation with him, and we kind of left acquaintances, and so I was just so impressed with this man and with all that he has accomplished, and it's just getting better. If you've already been to the Ark, I'm telling you, if you go back, there's new things to see. The zoo has been enlarged, and so it's just a great place, and I would encourage you to go. I also have been to the full-size replica of the Ark on Ma Wan Island outside of Hong Kong. And as I was telling you in the last broadcast, it's more the traditional picture that you see in the nursery rhymes where you have the rounded boat with all the animals sticking out, of the boat. It's more that shape. But it is huge. It's 450 feet long, and it is 75 feet high, and it's 45 feet wide. There's nothing small about that. You're talking about much bigger than a football field. In fact, you're talking about, if you use the great cubit, it was as long as 2 football fields, and that is a mighty large boat to be sitting in your front yard for 120 years. And I imagine Mrs. Noah was just a tad bit upset about the fact that this huge monstrosity sat in her yard for years. And it was made completely of wood. And so when Noah said, go for wood, he probably said, go for wood several times, because they certainly needed a lot of wood to go into this structure. And the Ark that is in Williamstown, Kentucky, apparently is the largest wooden structure in the world. So if you have a chance to go, it is well worth going. Now, talking about the Ark and the size of it, it's humongous. It's huge. It's got plenty of room in it. It's got plenty of room for 8 members of the family and all of the land-bearing and air-breathing animals in the earth. Now, understand that more than 2/3 of the animals in the world live in the sea. They live in the water, in either fresh water or salt water. And so we would not have to put those in the Ark. There was no aquariums in the Ark. There was no need for it, because the earth is being destroyed by a flood. And of course, the water will be contaminated by all kinds of things, but they will be able to cope and live. And so there was no reason to put the sea-bearing creatures in the Ark. The only thing that was in the Ark were animals of the land and, of course, birds of the air. And, of course, they came and they brought them in the Ark. And if you did that, you would understand that there was plenty of room, because once you take all of the species of animals that are water-dwelling animals, you leave a very small percentage of animals on the earth that are land dwellers and air breathers. And so there was plenty of room in the Ark for all of them to be there. And so why did God make it so big? Well, I can tell you by answering it with one word: grace. You see, when God does something and there is judgment involved, God always gives judgment, but then he also leaves a door for grace. Look what he did when he cursed the ground, and he cursed Adam and Eve, and he cursed the ground for their sake. But then he turns right around after cursing the serpent, cursing the man, cursing the woman, and he was not cussing, he was cursing. And when he did this, then he says, but there is one that is going to be born of woman that is going to bring forth a Savior that's going to turn all of this around and give you a second chance. God is so merciful, he is so full of grace, that he cannot bring judgment without also bringing mercy. And so when you look at the size of the Ark, what he was saying without saying anything is, there's room for you. There's room for anybody that wants to get in the Ark. There is plenty of room. I made it big enough so that no one could ever say there was no room for me. I could not be saved. I could not get in the Ark because there was no room. No, there was plenty of room. And I imagine there were empty rooms in the Ark whenever the door shut and Adam and Eve and Noah and his family were in the Ark and it shut. I'm sure that there were many empty rooms in the Ark, because God always does it extravagantly when it comes to grace. Verse 16, he says, a window shalt thou make to the Ark, and in a cubit shalt thou finish it above, and the door of the Ark shalt thou set in the side thereof, with lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. Now, if you go to the Ark in Williamstown, it has 3 floors. There is a 4th floor, which is going to be a very large restaurant and executive offices, and I was allowed to go up there Not everybody can go there, but there is a fourth floor. Now, on the Ark in Malwan Island, the fourth floor was a hotel, and I was able to stay in the hotel. So I slept 3 nights on Noah's Ark, and probably very few people can really brag about that. But anyway, it was quite an experience, and there was a fourth floor. But on the Ark, there were 3 floors, and God is very specific. He's got plans here. You see, God is very specific about his plans. Why? Because there's so much typology to salvation and redemption in the Ark that he wanted it done a certain way so that when it was done that way, it would be very easy for us to see the typology and understand the richness of his plan, and that it was not haphazard, but that everything was meticulously planned, because that's how the divine creator does everything. For those people who say that this world just happened, and that there was just this big boom, and as a result there's the earth, and then this atmosphere was created just, or not created, but it just happened, and all of this is just a coincidence. I can tell you that it's very obvious that when you look at creation, you can see the signature of a divine, intelligent creator, and he is very particular about how he does things, and he's very particular about how things are done. If Noah would not have built the ark the way God said, if he would have taken shortcuts, if he would have used a different kind of wood, if he would have not pitched it within and without, it would not have floated, and Noah and his family would have been just as lost as everybody else in the earth if he did not obey God the way God said for him to do it. So for people who think that God says anything goes, and he doesn't matter, and you can do it the way you want to, and like people have told me before, as in the 30 years that I've pastored, me and Jesus have our own thing going. Sorry about that. Me and Jesus are going to have to stay according to his word. Even God is bound by his word, and he's not going to create some new way for you just because he likes you. He is not going to alter his plan for any human being on the earth. When people tell me they're fasting because they want to get God to do something, I'm going to fast until God does this. You might as well just go on a diet, because the fact of the matter is God is not going to alter his plan for any human being, no matter how much they beg or how long they fast. You don't fast to convince God to do what you want him to do. You fast to convince yourself to do what God wants you to do. It is an act of sacrifice and self-sacrifice so that we can get our flesh to the place where we are willing to be obedient to God. So he tells him, this is the way I want it. I want you to build 3 floors. The lower, the second, and the third story shall you make it. And on top of it, you're going to put a window. And I don't see anything here about a diving board. Because you see, when they were put in the ark, they were to stay in the ark. There, some people I know think that there was a diving board on the ark, because anytime that they want to go out and do something they shouldn't do, or be disobedient to God, or just decide that they don't want to be in the church for a while, or they don't want to have a relationship. I met somebody not too long ago, and it was just kind of comical to me, because I started talking to them about, church and about God, and they said, well, I'm not in the church right now. And I'm like, oh, really? So how are you not in the church? Neither one of us are in the church right now. We can't. We want to be, but we can't. And basically what he was saying, I'm not living for God right now. In other words, he's on vacation. He's on reprieve. And I said, well, I hope that you get back in time before the rapture takes place, and before maybe something happens to you, because you see, if you're not in the church, whatever that means that you're not living for God. You're not being pleasing to God. And so therefore, you're in a lost condition. And so, I don't see how people can just pick and choose when they want to be in the church or not, because nobody in Noah's family said, hey, I like the ark, but I think I'll just dive off into the water here and take a swim. No, you didn't do that, because the flood was judgment. The flood was destruction. The flood was something you didn't want to be anywhere near. And so he said, come in the ark, I'll shut the door. When you're ready to come out, I'll open the door, and the only thing you've got is a window to the world. And you can open that window from time to time, and whenever the ark runs aground, you'll use that window to send forth birds to find out if it is time for you to come out of the ark. And of course, if it is, I'll open the door. So God opened the door, God shut the door, and he didn't open the door until it was time for them to come out. And that just shows you how particular God is about everything. He didn't say, oh, I'll build it the way you want to. No, he said, here's the way I want it done. Now, the word window there in the Hebrew, it's sohar. And sohar means a light from a window or a double light. It can also mean the time of day called noon. And what I believe the reason that he used that word is because perhaps maybe when the sun did come to the point of noon, it would shine through this window and he would understand that it was midday. Understand they're in the ark and there's no watches. There's no Rolexes. There's no clocks. How in the world do they know what time it is? And you may say, why in the world would they need to know? Well, they've got to feed animals. They've got a routine they've got to keep. They've got to maintain some kind of routine or they would just go stark crazy. And so, maybe God said, look, just so you can keep your sanity, there'll be times of the day where you'll be able to tell through the window what time it is when the storm is over, by the way, and the sun has come out. And then that'll give you some idea of what time it is and how to run your schedule and how to feed the animals and take care of them. So there is a window, and the window, of course, also can mean the time of day or the shining of the light of the noon sun. And then the word finish. He tells him, he says, I want you to do this, and I want you to finish it above. Now, what does he mean by the word finish? The word there is kalal, and it simply means to end or complete or prepare or to fulfill or bring to pass. He said, so I want you to build 3 floors. I want you to finish the floors. I want you to build a window, and I want you to build a door in the side of the ark. Now, if I was going to build a door on a box that is about to go through a terrible storm, I would put it on top, okay? Because that's where the water's not going to be. I don't think I'd want to put it on the side of the ark because it looks like to me that water could leak through with the terrible waves and the crashing that's going to be going on. I don't think I want my door on the side. But the reason that God wanted it on the side, he has a reason for everything, is because before they leave in the ark, the animals are going to have to come in. And so being on the side, all he would have to do is build a ramp. And I don't even think he had to go out and hog tie them and drag them. I think that God put it in the heart of all of the animals, if you want to live, go find this big box and get inside. And so I believe that as they were finishing the ark, that animals started just showing up and started going inside the ark. And I don't think he had to corral them or go gather them or hunt for them or trap them. I believe that God put it in the hearts and the instinct of the animals to come to the ark. And so the amount of animals, of course, we understand there were 7 clean and of male and female, which would make 14. And then there were 2 of the unclean. So when you hear the story that Noah had the animals coming in 2 by 2, that is true if they were the unclean animals, the creeping animals, the reptiles, and such as that. Then there was going to be only a pair of males and a pair of females. But if there were clean animals, animals that can be eaten, animals that are considered to be clean animals, then there were 7 couples. And of course, that would bring 14. So God moved on 14 animals to say, go to the ark. And they did. They went to the ark and they got in the ark, and that is why they were saved. So he said, finish it and put the door on the side. See, everything has a reason. Everything has a purpose. And if God does require something of you, then you need to remind yourself that it is for a purpose. All things work together for the good for them that are called according to his purpose. Not your purpose, not my purpose, but his purpose. And so, when God has a purpose, he has a reason for doing things, and that is why he requires those things of us. And we're going to continue to talk about the ark and Noah and all of those things, and I hope that you're finding this interesting as we study the Word together, and hope that you will come back to us whenever we release our next broadcast, because we're doing all we can to make the Word come alive to you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Word Alive broadcast. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our channel. Once you've subscribed, make sure to click on the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time a new episode is released. If you'd like to support this ministry, you can do so by checking out our Patreon page and signing up for one of the provided monthly tiers. A link to our Patreon page can be found down in the description. God bless you, and we'll see you next time as we continue to make the Word come alive to you.